Hi, I'm Nat.
And I'm Guy, and chaos in Tehran.
Yes.
Trump tweets, the city starts to evacuate on their own. Good on him for actually giving a warning, but I disagree with a lot of things he's doing right now. We're going to get into it.
Mm-hmm. And also, thank you to everybody coming over from my show in Spanish. I'll remind you, if you want to send a message in Spanish, I can translate it and then answer in Spanish or English.
Yeah, and thanks for everybody that did tune in on the weekend. We've never done a Saturday broadcast, but we thought the No Kings rally across the United States would be a lot more exciting. Alas,
well, I knew it wasn't going to be that exciting.
Alas, it wasn't. But as soon as we stopped streaming, it got kind of exciting.
In Portland and Seattle, of course.
And we'll maybe talk a little bit about, remind me to talk about it because I don't think I made a note of it.
Yes.
Okay, let's get right into the first story here.
So Trump's Truth Social post today at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time.
Oh, one moment. Donald Trump is currently at the G7 in Calgary, or he was.
Yes.
So that's where he was tweeting this out from. After he tweeted this, he immediately left. He's preparing the war room in Washington, D.C. now.
Yes. So he said Iran should have signed the deal I told them to sign. What a shame and waste of human life. Simply stated, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. I said it over and over again. Everyone should immediately evacuate Tehran.
And it sounds like Iraq all over again. Oh, they have a WMD. They have a WMD. We have to stop them. They've been saying this for literally 34 years. It was Netanyahu 34 years ago that tried to weave this narrative of they're just months away from a nuclear bomb. It never happened. They have a nuclear program that's a civilian program. And if you're going to try to sell me this bullshit again, I'm not buying it. And we're going to see a lot of people on YouTube that came up with Donald Trump as supporting him because he was anti-war, because in his first term, he had so many peace agreements in the Middle East, the 7 Middle Eastern peace accords. He pulled out of all the major wars. Biden was getting us into it. We're seeing Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, a lot of people really step up and take a hard line saying, no, we're anti-war and we're not going to support you if you go there. We're seeing other independent media like Benny Johnson, like a lot of people with YouTube channels that don't want to lose those viewers. They think if they go against the administration, they are, and they're really spineless. And this is coming from somebody we've supported Donald Trump in a country it's not like
popular.
It's not popular to support him.
In two countries now.
In 2 countries now. We supported him in Canada.
Yeah.
Then we came to Mexico. We supported him here. Nobody in these countries supports him, but us. Yeah. Very few people.
And during I mostly discovered it as I was, moving from being a crazy woke progressive around 2015, 16, and then I started to shift, how I saw things, to listen to different voices and, different perspectives. And I realized how crazy the one side I used to be on was. And then during the dark times, I will call them, of 2020, I started seeing what he was saying, and he was going against what most of the other, especially in Canada, I was living in Canada, we were living in Canada all the way back then. And I kind of started saying, even to you, oh, listen to what he's saying. And because at the time you weren't super into news, you were like, you started calling me baby Trump. And then I started to try to say, no, he's actually saying things that are worthwhile. He's not as crazy as people paint him to be. And then kind of slowly started looking at the news from a different perspective, not the Canadian one. And you could see that he was trying to do some, different things. I
generally agree with most of his policies, his economic policies. He's going to have to do major things to kind of reorientate the U.S. because they were about to fall off a cliff if they don't do something different. If they do something different, they still might fall off that cliff, but you have to do something. That being said, war is not that thing you need to restructure your economy. If it is, I'm not for it. So.
Mm-hmm. Same. I just think everybody should.
Let's just make it very clear for the audience here. It's not that I support Iran. I don't support Iran in any way, shape, or form. If Israel and Iran want to have a war, let them have a war. Let the U.S. stay out of it. The U.S. has destabilized the Middle East for far too long. All their wars ended up, the justifications that they gave completely fell apart years later, whether it was Iraq 1, Iraq 2, or Afghanistan, or even what happened in Libya. So also, Although I think Palestine's gone too far, it took me a long time to say, okay, it's time to stop bombing Palestine. I thought it was fine for Israel to attack Palestine in the beginning because Palestine had attacked them first. But at a certain point, I just think they went too far. Now Israel is going all the way into Iran, which is crazy. Now you differ on Palestine a little bit?
Well, I just think like every other country get out of there and let them, like it's a territorial dispute, let them do whatever they're going to do, whatever's going to happen. Is it fair? Is it just, et cetera, et cetera? I just want less involvement and less using of these wars by bigger countries to be able to, you know, get whatever they want to be implemented worldwide, not just for their own countries or the countries they're going into, but everywhere. It's always used as a way to, you know, change the way the normal life works for a lot of people.
Well, let's show Tehran. This was after Trump made the announcement that people should get out because everybody's expecting them to bomb. There has been rumblings of possibly a nuclear attack by Israel. So I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but an attack is probably imminent based upon Trump's tweet. But traffic is primarily flowing one way, and that's out. Now, it's not that they even necessarily have to get out of the entire country. They just need to get out of specifically Tehran. But even that being said, this is a major civilian city. Even when Russia went into Ukraine, they did it slow. Everybody had a chance to evacuate every major city. They really haven't hit Kyiv in a major way. When they did, they hit military facilities primarily. So what you're seeing here going directly after a city that has millions of people, the country has 90 million people total, more than the population of Iraq, Afghanistan combined. So this is an extremely mountainous country. I don't expect to see troops rolling in there. I think this is going to be mainly a ballistic war, at least to start out. It's going to be a lot of fighter jets and missiles going into the country. Let's show did you manage to get the tweet that Trump gave out about Tucker Carlson?
Yes, but do you want me to read comments first or go into that?
Oh, we have comments. Yes. Oh, finally.
Finally.
Well, we had one person watching for a long time, and I knew going into this, people are going to be throttled for taking the stance we're taking on the war. I was watching Tim Pool where you were on. He says he doesn't know if his channel is going to be able to survive because he is primarily anti-war. A lot of Trump supporters are, but we're seeing the base fracture right now. And people that were anti-war and supported Trump for it are now all of a sudden pro-war. Some, I'd say, bigger content creators with quite a few followers, 500,000 or more, we won't mention names, but typically they would have the anti-war stance. And now that they've had a lot of success and following from a traditional conservative base, they're all about the war now. And it's just kind of sad to see.
So Rafa says, greetings from Philadelphia. So you did go.
Oh, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Well, yeah, I hope that means your wife's doing better.
Yes.
The fact that you went to Philadelphia.
Yes, I'll continue. You'll get a message from
Continue to talk.
Walker says, yo, hello, guys. Hello, Walker. Thank you for being here. And Rafa says, so Nat was who turned Guy into a right-wing extremist. And funnily enough, a lot of people that stopped talking to me actually did the blame backwards, but I was the first one that started thinking and really following things closer and closer and realizing a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I was non-political, and she really turned me right-wing, and then after that, all of her friends kind of blamed me for turning her, but that's not even now. You're pretty extreme.
I'm way more conservative. Let's just say.
I'm like moderate right wing. I would say you're far right.
Nah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Especially in private.
Well, while we continue, I think she needs to be let out.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna let the little dog out.
But I'll continue to read Walker. He can still hear you. Walker says it's really quite strange how a country like Iran. It's really quite strange how a country like Iran can't have a competent intelligence service, even though Pakistan does have one with the ISI. Guy, do Iran and Pakistan have a bad relationship?
One moment. Come on.
I will say I don't know. Guy is way more geopolitical than I am.
Repeat the question. Sorry, repeat the question. I'm back.
Did she go?
Yeah.
Okay. She's an elderly lady. She needs to go bathroom sometimes. So Walker says, it's really quite strange how a country like Iran can't have a competent military service, even though Pakistan does have one with ISI. and then guide do Iran and Pakistan have a bad relationship?
Well, this is the thing, and this is the dirty little secret. Countries that do have nuclear weapons, the U.S. doesn't touch anymore. Small countries like Pakistan, like North Korea, they won't go after them because that's a deterrent. Libya had a nuclear weapon, and then the U.S. negotiated them to hand over their nuclear weapons, and as soon as they did, they overthrew the regime. So a lot of other countries learned from that. I will say Pakistan has threatened to launch a nuke at Israel if Israel launches a nuke into Iran right now. So tensions are very high. Let's go into the Tucker. Oh, one more thing I want to say is Israel claims they don't have a nuclear program. Everybody knows they have nuclear warheads from the U.S., and the U.S. has those codes. So if they do launch them, they have to launch them with U.S. approval. It's a secret nuclear program. The only country to not sign the Nuclear Peripheral Treaty has been Israel. So the fact that they are keeping their nuclear program secret, they won't admit it, then they won't sign the treaties to limit nuclear attacks and things like that, and then they're trying to police countries on their border, like Iran, or close to their border, like Iran, saying you can't have a nuclear program either, is kind of crazy, because it's a complete double standard here. I do understand they feel threatened and stuff like that. So if they want to have a war, let them have a war. The U.S. should stay out of it. And if they do have a war, maybe it'll be a good thing. Maybe it will settle down the region and stop the battling for power. I don't know, but if they need a war, let them have it. But the U.S. and the EU should stay out of it, is my stance.
Rafa says, I don't understand why U.S. presidents always end up being bootlickers for Israel. Well, because Israel is the one holdout in the Middle East that they can play with.
We thought Trump was finally standing up to him. Like, yeah, he was allied with him, but we didn't think he was going to support him when it went to a war. It's very important right now, specifically, that people stand up to Donald Trump and tell him, especially his base, that we do not agree with this. People like Tucker Carlson, like Candace Owens, even small channels like this, that we stand up in mass. He did listen with the vaccine. He was very pro jibby jab when it first came out. His stance completely changed based upon his base. People have his ear right now, and it's these neocons. It was these never Trumpers that were rhinos, Republicans in name only, that were backing DeSantis, backing Nikki Haley, refused to back Trump. Now all of a sudden, Trump is abandoning his base for these people. Craziness.
And also, Rafa, that's good to hear. I'll just leave it that way to keep your privacy.
Oh, okay.
But yes,
Let's go into, we're going to talk quite a bit about Iran right now. I just want to make our stances clear going forward. And that being said, I'm expecting a lot of channels to get a lot of subscribers if this war goes forward, especially the channels that are pro-war. I'm not willing to take a pro-war stance when that's never been my stance.
Yes. And according to Reuters, not that long ago, Trump requests NSC to be prepared as he returns early from G7 summit, Fox News reports.
And Scheinbaum was supposed to talk to him over dinner, and...
tomorrow. They had a whole thing planned. All Mexican mainstream media was talking about Scheinbaum and Trump are going to meet, and she might talk to him about the tariffs on, the remittances and everything that was on the Mexican agenda, and now he's gone.
Okay, so this, how this does involve Mexico with this Iran thing, there are two big things here. Number one, this could mean a good deal for Mexico and Canada, especially if the U.S. does go to war. They're going to want to secure their alliances quickly. They're going to want to make deals quickly. So it's a chance for them to get good trade deals with them and the U.S. That's number one. But number two, the U.S. is able to justify this war on the back of Israel, and Israel really has no justifications. China and Russia have been keeping Iran in check and having them focus on the economic alliance of the BRICS. So Iran has not been violent in very few, in any outwardly way. Even after they were struck by Israel, they did not strike U.S. bases in the region like they said they would. So they've been very, how do you say it? restrained in their response. They're going against Israel, and the reason they had to launch back against Israel was because Israel said, this is not a one-day strike. This is going to be between 2 weeks and 2 months. If you know you're going to continuously be struck, you have to fight back. Again, I'm not on Iran's side. If they want to fight, they should fight, but the U.S. needs to stay out of it. What was the, repeat the article? Oh, we're talking about Scheinbaum.
Yes.
Scheinbaum and Mexico, if Trump is able to justify this Iranian war, and there hasn't been a false flag yet, I fully expect a false flag to come in order to rally the U.S. people around it, because right now, Trump's base is absolutely splintering, and people will stop supporting him based on this one issue. That being said, if he can justify an Iranian war, he's not gonna need a justification to come into Mexico and clean up the cartels, as he wants to call it. So he's gonna tell Scheinbaum straight up, if this Iranian war does end, we're coming into Mexico. You either help us or you don't.
In your opinion?
In my opinion. So the fact that Trump is going after Iran with so little justification, other countries should be kind of forewarned and know when they're dealing with the U.S., things could escalate. I don't want to see them come into Mexico, and yeah.
And I continued warning all last week throughout the protests that it was a lot of crazy Antifa leftist types that were doing all the chaos, but which was helping the rhetoric grow and grow within the MAGA base, even the most fervent ones saying these are Mexican national insurrectionists. They want to return California and Texas to Mexico. They're here to get back what's theirs. They're getting violent. And while a lot of it was just crazy actual Americans just doing chaos, the rhetoric has already been started to be spun, and the whole rhetoric of Mexico has actually unalived more people in the U.S. with the whole substances issue and with the whole cartels issue, that in a way one could think, or they could say or argue, that the U.S. would be a lot more justified to come into Mexico than it would be to go into Iran.
Yeah, and we kind of lined up the dominoes last week with that. So I think it is important for Mexico and Canada, that issue aside, to use this war as an opportunity to get the best deal they can and to avoid these tariffs and to help out their economy. I would also expect a lot of manufacturing contracts to specifically be given to Mexico and Canada. They're going to need mass manufacturing if this is going to go on. Let's go into the Tucker Carlson thing, because this was surprising. Trump and Tucker Carlson have always had a close relationship. Tucker has always been a big supporter of Trump.
Oh, I don't know if I found the Tucker thing.
Okay, I have it written down so I can read it for everybody if they want.
Let me try to find it. Sorry, 1 second.
Okay, I'll just read it here. It's a short tweet and right to the point. Whoever's got Trump's ear obviously isn't Tucker Carlson right now, and it's a shame. The tweet said, somebody please explain to this kook Tucker Carlson that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon, and that's the thing. So
I found it.
Oh, you did?
Yes. But yes, Trump and this is from the Hodge twins. They're funny. Sometimes they get a little bit ridiculous if you don't know who they are. They're two twins that did the whole Blexit thing with Candace Owens and fought against BLM.
You're seeing his base right now take a hard and firm stance. It's completely fractured. Yeah. And even people that there's a lot of people trying not to take a stance and trying to tiptoe around this subject matter because they don't want to take a hard stance because they think it will affect their careers on social media or their news companies or whatever it is. This is really a litmus test to who's a grifter and who's not within the alternative media space when it comes to traditionalists and conservatives, because everybody was fervently anti-war, and that's why they supported Trump in the first place, and they vocalized that over the last few years. I watch over 300 content creators in order to get the news for this show every day, so I know the base's views, not just within the United States, but content creators that support Trump outside of the United States. Nobody supports him going to war. Whoever is telling him different is just blatantly lying.
Well, some are now newly supporting him doing this, but they have before said very different things. And I mean, speaking for myself, I don't speak a lot or too much on this issue because that's not my area, honestly, of expertise. I mean, I know quite a few things, but that's why I let him talk more about it, because Guy's more geopolitics, I'm more cultural battle and society and what's happening, etc. And that's where my interest lies. But I will still continue to say anti-war, let them fix it by themselves, and don't get pulled in once again by narratives.
Okay, and let's just talk about what could be the possible motivations for Trump wanting to get into this war. And obviously, he doesn't have a justification which the base or the general public will support him. But behind the scenes, he may be looking at the geostrategic implications of this. And I'm just talking about how they're seeing it. I don't agree with what I'm about to say, but this may be how the Trump administration does see it. And that is, China gets the majority of their oil from Iran. A lot of people think it's Russia, but the oil pipelines are not built from Russia to China yet. And it's going to take quite a few years to build those pipelines. So Iran is the major oil distributor to China. It would absolutely cripple the Chinese economy if Iran goes to war.
And this is just from like a few minutes ago. So it's from Nick Sotor, mostly trustworthy, but the White House is in discussions with Iran to set a meeting this week between Steve Witkoff and the Iranian foreign minister to hammer out a nuclear deal per Axios, and Trump team proposes Iran talks this week on nuclear deal ceasefire.
Well, how are you supposed to trust America? Like, again, I'm a Trump.
48 minutes ago.
I've been a Trump supporter for a long time. So how are you going to trust the U.S. and Trump again in this deal? The last deal they were in talks with were currently going on when Israel bombed Iran, and Trump came out with a statement saying, "Oh, this was just a ruse, so they would let their guard down, and then we can bomb them." Like, and now you want to go into negotiations again? What's Iran supposed to think? So you can bomb them again? Like, I'm not an Iranian fan, but you're not going to trust a country that literally made a statement saying we were in negotiations with you, so you would lower your guard. It's craziness.
The only thing about Iran for me is I used to have a boss that was Iranian, and she yelled at me one time.
And let's go back into this really quick. If they cut off China's energy supply with Iran, they can potentially go back to China. And China is really making hard-nosed deals right now. They have a temporary deal for 6 months. It's not all worked out, but the U.S. has very little leverage over China right now. If they cut off their major oil supply, their economy is going to go in the tank. China's is, and that might give Trump more leverage to hammer out a deal in the U.S.'s favor. Once that deal is hammered out, maybe they pull out of Iran, but I highly doubt it. I expect this war to keep going.
Do you want me to read more into this?
Yeah, I would also like to say, after Israel bombed Iran, Putin got on the phone for an hour phone call with Trump. This was an important phone call because at any point, if they do want to de-escalate, Iran's no longer going to trust the U.S. or Trump, so they're going to need a mediator. They trust Putin immensely. The economic relations between Iran and Russia are huge. So if Putin's willing to come in as a third-party negotiator and kind of try to at least hammer a deal out, that's a good thing. So we'll have to see what happens. I just kind of wanted to put that in there, the fact that they did have a phone call after the initial strike. So there is an off-ramp for Trump right now, but it only seems to be escalating with him telling them to evacuate Tehran. That being said, there was rumors, and I think these rumors are looking less and less true, but the rumor was Trump was expecting Israel to hit Iran this week, because it's Monday now. They were supposed to have trade negotiations on Sunday. Israel did not want those trade negotiations to go good, so they hit early before Trump had the ability to evacuate all the bases in the Middle East. He only evacuated the families. He was going to completely evacuate them before they made the strike. Supposedly, Israel struck early because they didn't want any type of trade negotiation going on. So the fact that Putin did call him after that, there is an off-ramp here. I don't know if they're going to take it. Okay, yeah, let's read a little bit.
The White House is discussing with Iran the possibility of a meeting this week between U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff and Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. I think, according to 4 sources briefed on the issue, the objective would be to discuss a diplomatic initiative involving a nuclear deal and an end to the war between Israel and Iran. Why it matters. The meeting hasn't been finalized yet, but it is part of a last-ditch effort by President Trump to swerve away from war and back toward deal-making. A meeting with the Iranians this week is under consideration. A U.S. official confirmed the meeting could be a make-or-break moment for the question of whether the U.S. will join the war in order to eliminate Iran's nuclear program militarily.
Yeah, and there's China, Russia, and Iran are the big alliance. China and Russia are the foundation of that alliance. Iran is the linchpin that kind of holds it all together. That they're trying to take out the weakest link. Iran does not have any nuclear weapons. They have the weakest military between the three, although the mountainous terrain in that region, and they do have a very strong military, even though it's the weakest of the three. They could have escalated the war in Ukraine if they wanted. They chose not to because it's a very strong opponent. Maybe they're thinking this is a weaker opponent and Israel will do the heavy lifting. That's not the case. A lot of this heavy lifting is going to have to be done by U.S. planes and U.S. equipment. So.
And just quickly, Rafa says, that's why I follow you. You're really honest and congruent. Thank you. Always try to be, even if people don't like it.
Yeah, I said, if Ukraine and Russia want to fight it out, let them fight it out. The U.S. should stay out of it. I'm saying the same thing about this thing, and I'm so principled in my manner that I'm willing to stop supporting Trump over this one single issue. It's that important to me. I'll still support some of the things he says. If he makes good decisions outside of this, I'll just give my honest opinion, but I'll no longer outwardly support him how I used to. Based on this one issue.
And with me and the protests, just trying to give the other side of what could happen if these idiots continue to do what they were doing.
I would prefer if the U.S. would completely stay out of it and not give even any weapons or funding to Israel. But as long as they just stay out of it, even if Israel wants to buy weapons off the United States, fine, let them do that. But there should be no boots on the ground for the United States in this.
Oh, and Zesties Animal, you're back. Thank you for being here. Says, yes, I am really irked by this mess.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of opinions might be, a lot of people might be, continue to try to sway opinions one way or the other. But the people that stand firm in their convictions, be it they want to go, they've always wanted to go to war, or they've never wanted, or they want the wars to stop, that's where you'll be able to tell who's being fully honest and who's been changed really quickly by one singular issue that, yes, is very important, but shouldn't sway you one way or another just because you want to keep your press credentials.
And the entire West has been gunning for war. We've been talking about this for over a year now. The EU is desperate because their economy is on the verge of collapse. We've been talking about how they desperately need a war. I think Trump has been going around the world trying to get these tariff deals. He's got a few, and it was headed in the right direction, but I don't think it's coming together like he thought. And now that if he's going to start a war and he's going to send the U.S. military in here full force, I think you're going to see he's going to become a very popular president amongst these Western countries, like all the EU globalists, like Canada, like all these people that hated him before, all of a sudden going to love him and say, yeah, he's the leader of the free world. And that's just not the case. And a lot of people in the global South, or maybe that are in between the BRICS and between the U.S., like Mexico and other countries like that, are not going to like it, but I think Mexico is going to get on board because they're going to want a trade deal. So I think a lot of these countries that want war are going to go and they're going to negotiate these tariff deals and sometimes take the short end of the stick, sometimes not, but because they're so fervent for a war, they're going to ally with Trump now.
And Walker says, I don't think the U.S. can stop supporting Israel. That country's lobby is tremendously powerful in the U.S.
It's absolutely fine to support Israel if they want to support Israel. It's just not okay to put troops on the ground in there, or for them to... their aircraft carriers are already over there shooting down missiles. I even think that's too much. If Israel wants to defend themselves, sell them weapons and let them do what they want to do. If they don't have a big enough population to go fight a war against Iran, well, they shouldn't be starting a war with Iran in the first place. That's my take on it.
And Zusty's Animal says, hey there, glad to see your show again. Thank you for coming back.
Okay, we're talking a lot about Israel. Let me see any more notes that I had really.
Do you want the Tucker opinion or no?
Yeah, I clipped the Tucker opinion. I hadn't had a chance to watch it.
Speaking of Benny
it's
Johnson.
a little bit older of an interview with Steve Bannon, and I believe Steve Bannon should be against this war as well. He's traditionally anti-war, so hopefully that is still his stance, but let's see what they say.
And Benny, who has flip-flopped quite a bit.
Benny Johnson is completely for this war, at least judging by his ex-posts while you were on the air. I'm seeing a lot of people I didn't expect to support this absolutely just flip like a dime.
Okay, hopefully this works.
I actually really love Trump.
Turn it up.
He's a deeply humane, kind person. And I am saying this because I'm really afraid that my country's going to be further weakened by this. I think we're going to see the end of American empire, obviously. Other nations would like to see that, and this is a perfect way to scuttle the USS America on the shoals of Iran. But it's also going to end, I believe, Trump's presidency and effectively end it. And so that's why I'm saying this.
What do you mean by that? That's coming from you. That's
look, I knew Bush. I knew George W. Bush. We had, family connections to Bush. I knew Bush. Personally, I still see Bush sometimes. And, of course, he hates me, and he does because I criticized him on Iraq. And that war is the sum total, from a historical perspective, of his administration. But I knew him, and he had all kinds of plans for the things that he wanted to do. But once domestically,
right,
to improve the country.
Right.
And you may agree or disagree, but in his mind, he wasn't just about the invasion of Iraq in March of 2000.
Oh, no. He was going to redo Social Security. He had all.
Yeah, George Bush had a lot of big plans, just like Donald Trump had a lot of big plans. And honestly, Trump was implementing them a lot. They were able to derail everything Bush was planning to do and got him involved in that war. And that consumed his whole administration, and it completely backfired. The whole thing was a freaking lie.
It's all
100%.
All types of. He was going to take care of the entitlements issue.
And he really thought it was going to work.
Yep.
And you could laugh at that or whatever, but the point is, the second you get enmeshed in a real war, not a fake, let's go bomb the villagers and declare success, though we don't even have a good track record. Why are the Houthis still there?
No,
there's a whole other question,
right,
which is how
Okay,
prepared
and
is the US?
we can stop that. You kind of see his opinion. And I will say this. Trump would be smart to make this a proxy war with Israel, because if it becomes a proxy war between Israel and Iran, he will have the ability to pull out early on. Right now, his base is trying to speak up. The people that are anti-war, like me, like Tucker, like Steve Bannon, they're trying to tell him, stop. This is not what the people want. This is going to ruin not only your legacy, but ruin the country. If this becomes a proxy war between Israel and Iran, at some point, Trump can just say, well, I'm not supporting you've gone too far, and he might be able to pull out early on. So that's what I'm kind of hoping happens, is the base speaks up, Trump actually listens, but it's important the base vocalizes that they're willing to walk away from him. Mm-hmm. So they're the ones that kind of supported him and got him into office, because he was not popular at a certain point.
Yeah. And Zusty's Animal says, look for Marjorie Taylor Greene's support for Tucker Carlson, hashtag America First.
Yeah, I'm wondering which side she's going to land on this.
I found it. She says, Tucker Carlson is one of my favorite people. He fiercely loves his wife, children, and our country. Since being fired by the neocon network Fox News, he has more popularity and viewers than ever before. He unapologetically believes the same things I do, that if we don't fight for our own country and our own people, then we will no longer have a country for our children and our grandchildren, and foreign wars, intervention, regime change put America last, and innocent people are making us broke, and ultimately will lead to our destruction. That's not kooky. That's what millions of Americans voted for. It's what we believe is America first. And I think every country should be country first.
Yeah, Mexico first.
Everybody
Canada first.
Yeah.
Not globalist first.
Yeah, not everybody
and
first.
this is going to become a globalist war. This is going to be a bunch of bullshit, and we're about to watch it.
Because it's going to allow a lot of things to come in. And plans to be executed
And let's
properly.
just talk about Iran for a second. Iran did not hit back on U.S. bases. They specifically hit back with Israel. They said they would hit the U.S. bases. They didn't. They've been very measured in their response. That being said, if terrorist attacks start happening within the U.S., here comes the digital ID, here comes the digital currency, here comes all the things that Trump's base didn't want. This is an excuse to make the real security state the real Patriot Act 3.0.
Yeah.
So,
and apparently, hold on, where am I?
Americans can expect their freedoms to be absolutely stripped if this war goes forward.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of other countries as well, in the EU particularly, because they need any reason to continue with the plan, and in the US to implement the plan. And then all of us will just get, the smatterings and the extras. Zesty's Animal says Charlie Kirk's poll had 89% not wanting to get involved.
So yeah, I was going to talk about this. Thanks for bringing it up, Zesty Animal. I was watching some good commentary on this. Charlie Kirk was trying not to take an opinion. He is a fervent Israel supporter, which is fine. But when we're going to back them and go into a war, it's not fine. It's fine to support Israel. It's not fine to put troops on the ground and for the United States to be dragged into this war. Israel is becoming a liability at this point. That being said, you're seeing a lot of people like this. Charlie Kirk tried not to take a stance, so he did this poll. And it's really good that 90% of the supporters came back with this poll saying we do not want war, because I was kind of expecting Charlie Kirk maybe to come out on the other side. I think after this poll, it's going to be really hard for him to continue to support this war, but maybe he will, because he's really deep into the administration. Mm-hmm. And Trump seems to be taking a hard line on this.
Well, we'll see. I mean, with the latest report from Axios, but again, it could be a switcheroo.
And I will say this, if they do go full-fledged into this war like Trump is going right now, it's pretty crazy, like, how he's willing to go into this war with so little justification. If he does, I lost my train of thought. That was what I was going to say, is he was planning on this right from the beginning. Right from this beginning of this administration, I said all the actions he's doing with these tariffs and shutting down the borders, exiting illegal immigrants, everything he's doing with the economy by bringing steel back, bringing manufacturing back for the military-industrial complex, expanding the military-industrial complex by $1 trillion. Everything he was doing was preparing for war. You can see that. I was hoping he was preparing for war because it was, you don't mess with the United States because we are prepared, because Biden was completely unprepared. But now it looks like the whole time maybe he was preparing for this and they're going full-fledged into it. And all this anti-war talk, all these peace talks he was in, maybe it was all just a ruse and he got one over on his base. But his base is no longer going to be his base if he does get into this war. Okay.
Do you want to go to the last tweet you had for Trump, or no? The last truth you had for Trump?
I had another truth?
Yes.
Okay.
From Anthony Cabasas, Trump on Truth Social, America First means many great things, including the fact that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon.
This is complete.
But that was a while ago.
The fact that he thinks Bush can sell this to the American people, nobody believed it at that time. They were able to get it because they had mainstream media and there was not an alternative media. If he thinks people believe this crap, nobody believes it. Nobody, even the people that are supporting him, don't believe Iran has a nuclear weapon. They're allowed to develop nuclear energy. They have 90 million people. If you watch videos from the ground in Tehran, which I was doing yesterday, the city is pretty magnificent. It's in better shape than most U.S. cities. And now they want to go completely level this thing to the ground. They need energy within that region to support their people, their city, and things like that. As far as Tulsi Gabbard, who is the head of national intelligence in the United States, literally came out and said there is zero evidence to say Iran has a nuclear weapons program or a nuclear bomb. All their entire nuclear program is civilian based. This is U.S. intelligence. So Trump is going against his national intelligence advisor, saying they do not have a nuclear weapon, and he's trying to say they do. They can't even get it straight within their own party. Yes. Sorry, I'm getting pretty worked up today about this because this is probably this is the worst
worst
move
idea?
he's made ever. It's not too late for him to pull out. People do need to speak up. So good on Tucker, good on Candace. I hope Charlie Kirk lands on the right side of this thing. And he's always said he was anti-war. Now we're going to see who's grifting and who had real beliefs, who has real principles as content creators, as independent media who wanted to change America and make America great. Even people that didn't live in that country were like, yeah, put America first, make it great. They didn't mean go to war because you can't compete on an economic level. And now you think the only way you can compete is to cripple the Chinese economy possibly by cutting off their oil because Iran is their major oil supplier. Okay, let's go on to something that
Rafa asks, which was Patriot Act 2.0? That would be what would be now implemented if they do decide that for national security, we need digital IDs. They need to bring in, an alternate form of currency, maybe digital one, not centralized, but at least there's talks about having a non-central bank one, but still in the States, Trump has talked about that.
It will go way further than that. If they're at a time of war and they have attacks within the U.S., they're going to say, oh, we have to nationalize our food. We have to nationalize our steel. Everything will have to be nationalized, federalized. Everything will have to be consolidated. Everything will have to be digitalized from who's in the country to the IDs. There'll be checkpoints and checks on the streets. Like the entire system is going to be everything his base did not want. That's what's going to happen if this war really amps up and America feels it on their own soil through attacks from possibly Iran, possibly false flag attacks.
And they still have, the option to go that way, even if it's not Iran. If they decide that they want to come into Mexico and they decide that Mexico is a real threat that's doing what the Mexican nationalists with their insurrection wanted to do, they still have that excuse.
Yeah, and let's just
well.
forewarn everybody that's watching this. We live in Mexico. I do not want them to come into Mexico in any way, shape, or form. I don't care what their justifications are. I don't want their military in Mexico. That being said, all day I listen to politics, and they were able to make a more coherent argument of why they should be able to invade Mexico than they can Iran. So the fact that they're actually going into Iran, this should be a warning to Mexico that what their main talking point is more Americans have died over the last 20 years because of Mexican cartels than their foreign wars. And it's true, and that is something they'll be able to start a conflict and invade Mexico if they want. I am completely against it. And the fact that they're willing to go into Iran with less justification should be a forewarning to Mexico specifically. So, maybe I don't know. So,
but I'm also not on for hating the U.S. like a lot of Mexicans do.
No, not at all.
It's the different feeling.
It's not
overall.
too late for Trump to pull out of this thing.
Yeah, both.
Even if they start bombing it over the next 2 weeks, it's not too late. So people need to speak up. If the left is already against him, if the right turns against him, he's going to be on that ledge by himself.
And then they realize that really the U.S. doesn't have a king.
And J.D. Vance is going to go down with Trump if he supports this war, and it looks like he is. And J.D. Vance was an anti-war candidate. Everything he did, the reason I supported him from day one, I knew him when he was a senator. For years I followed him. I seen his transition from anti-Trump to pro-Trump, and the reason it was because he was anti-war. That's all he speaks about. That's why Robert Barnes, the constitutional lawyer that I listen to every week, that's why he supports J.D. Vance and everything. That's what.
And he would be a great next candidate if they don't pull an Ivanka on us.
The Democrats will be able to re-rise from the dead if Trump starts this war.
Yeah.
It's more than an opening there. And I would hope it would be an independent-minded left. So there's going to be a lot of, I think.
Too much money there.
No, I think what could happen, because you're going to have a lot of disenfranchised MAGA supporters that are anti-war kind of go independent because they were going to refuse to go to the Democratic Party. We're seeing a lot of Democrats already leave the party, and they're trying to do an independent movement. So if you have both parties, a large faction empty out and form an independent party, it would be enough to possibly get somebody elected.
I think that's a utopian dream that there will ever be a third party in the States that actually counts.
I don't want to see it. I would rather have Trump just pull out of the war.
Yeah.
But I do support, if he continues with the war, his base leaving him.
And Walker says, oh no, sorry. Zesty's Animal says, yes, we do not want war. Nobody does. Well, some people do because it benefits them.
Just to put it straight, I'm fine with Israel and Iran warring. I'm fine with Ukraine and Russia warring, but other countries just need to stay out of these regions, especially America. If they think they're the world's police and they keep doing this and they keep justifying these unjustifiable wars. Ukraine first, Israel first, every other country first except for their actual people.
Yes. And Walker says, Guy, have you seen the Family Guy episode where Peter Griffin makes the U.S. go to war with one line?
No, what was the line?
Yeah, let us know what the line was. It doesn't say. No, Walker says, the problem with all these statements going back and forth in the U.S. is that some say yes, others no. I don't know if the U.S. plays in the major leagues or if it simply doesn't control anything.
Well, it's going to be very interesting what happens right now because the left absolutely loves war and they have no real moral principles. Their morals are handed down from the elites down to the party, and that's how it's been. So it's going to be interesting if they actually flip and support Israel, especially with this Palestine thing that happened. So the left's in a real pickle here because the elites on the left-hand side want this war desperately, and they're probably foaming at the mouth that they actually got Trump to do this thing. It's going to be interesting what the base does, and the base could completely split from the elites.
We'll see.
And
there's too much money, I think, especially now that we saw who's financing and the financing going on for the protests and all those NGOs.
All that NGO money got cut off.
But not the internal one.
I think it was cut off in general. They don't have enough money to actually buy support anymore.
We'll see. Zesty's Animal says, wow, you nailed it, the guy. Well done, the guy.
Once in a while.
And Zesty's Animal also says, I think J.D. Vance looks like a young Ulysses S. Grant.
I really liked J.D. Vance, and I thought he was going to be the future of the party because of his anti-war stances and how he can verbalize things so well. He's going to have to be jumping through intellectual hoops to justify this when there is no justification, and he's going to burn his political career with this if they get into this war.
And also his story and his background, I think, also speaks to a lot of people, even though they try to disarm him with it and say, oh, he's lying, but he wasn't. And whenever they tried to prove that it wasn't true, it just came out that it was. But so we're going to talk about, do you want to keep talking about Iran?
We talked about Iran for pretty much the whole show, but why don't we just go through a few we actually had, usually the Monday show is filled with news because I gather it from all the days that I'm off, and then we share it on Monday. So we'll just jump through a couple stories, and we'll save the rest for tomorrow, but let's go to the major ones.
Walker says, the line Peter Griffin used at the convention was, anyone who doesn't want war is GAY. And suddenly everybody wanted war. There are clips of that scene on YouTube. I'll look it up. I don't want the alphabet community to get mad at me. I don't care. But I don't want YouTube to get mad at me.
Okay, and then maybe we'll just jump to some other stories. Let's go to the oil refinery.
Or do you want to go to RU and BLE?
Let's go to the... We'll do this story and then we'll go. So we're going to head over to RUMBLE in a moment. That's the Green Monster. But we're going to do one more story here before we do head over there.
Where is it?
Okay, so I kind of talked about this. If you can't find it, it's fine. I'll talk about it. We talked about this a little bit on our live stream on Saturday, which we rarely do, but there was a massive oil refinery fire in Texas. The city had a shelter-in-place order. The amount of smoke coming off of this thing was insane. I used to live in Long Beach, California when I lived in the States, which is filled with oil refineries. These things just don't go up on their own. So the fact that this thing is escalating with Iran, stuff like this, you really have to wonder, was there any funny business, any foul play? It was quite the scene. Then a lot of the state had shelter-in-place orders on Saturday. And I would expect to see more things like this if this foreign war does escalate.
That is big.
Yep, and I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to blame it specifically on Iran. They need some kind of event to try to get the moderates to support this war. And they need to try to switch the base. They need some kind of terrorist attack where a large anti-war base will end up supporting Trump and the direction he wants to go. I'm not one of those people, and I won't be supporting it. And I'm going to be calling it out as a false flag, most likely. Okay.
And just so you don't think an angry guy doesn't know when to block words, but
It's not going to matter if you say that.
yeah, I guess. Fine.
Okay, let's go over to RUMBLE right now. We'll do 3 or 4 stories on there before we wrap.
Yes.
So,
Zesty's Animal, anybody else who's new here, yes, the Green Monster, RUMBLE, alternative media platform. We do some stories we can't do on YouTube over there.
It's especially, we have almost no subscribers over there. We have like 61. We need 100 subscribers to become paid content creators. That being said, it's a very important platform right now, especially with things escalating with Iran and the war coming up. We're not going to be able to talk about a lot of the issues pretty soon. I'm expecting censorship if the United States does declare an actual war. Different kind of laws come into effect. They will be able to curb speech and stuff like that. So it's even a chance that we will get censored on Rumble. But as of right now, Rumble is the biggest free speech platform that's available. So we're going to head over there now.
Yes. And I'll shut you up before you keep saying words.
Okay.
Okay, hold on.
And I'm going to switch to Rumble on my phone. Once people get over there,
I gotta grab the chat.